The entire Magic community is talking about it, so let's jump into talking about Final Fantasy going into the Magic universe, or I think this is supposed to be a Universes Beyond set. I'm not actually 100% on that, but let's just talk about it. So, Final Fantasy characters are going to be on Magic the Gathering cards, and this Final Fantasy Universes Beyond set is going to be standard legal for the first time. Now, there's been a lot of uproar and a lot of anger about how half of Magic moving forward is just going to be Universes Beyond. And while I can absolutely understand not wanting to taint the very lore that you're building up in your own world, granted, people have to deal with a mascot character like Lute, and people, from my, at least the corners of the internet that I've been looking into as far as Magic goes, have definitely not liked the addition of Lute as a mascot character for Magic. But I digress. And some of the better cards that are coming out in more recent sets like Ether Drift, for example, is a Lute card for Commander, like a Lute legendary creature as a commander. Like, just imagine that for a second. But with Universes Beyond taking up more than 50% of the actual sets that are going to be releasing in the coming year or so, and making them standard legal, it's a bit concerning because the identity of Magic is slowly kind of getting lost as a result of that, and I can see that as someone who plays a mild amount of Magic. And yet, I personally am very much looking forward to the Final Fantasy cards. I'm looking forward to seeing the SpongeBob cards, for example. Like, I'm very, very excited for that. But with that being said, like I said, it does still seem very concerning because Magic is losing its identity. And the thing is that these Universes Beyond sets actually seem to be selling better than proper Magic sets, because you're trying to get people from outside of Magic to get into Magic, because funnily enough, more people exist outside of the Magic circle than people do within the circle who play Magic. So I just thought it was kind of worth talking about that. Hey, while this does kind of suck, it does also make some level of sense. So with the hot takes out of the way, let's talk about Magic the Gathering and Final Fantasy in a collaboration as part of a Universes Beyond standard legal set. So, I actually saw some of the actual cards, and the art looks absolutely incredible on some of them. In fact, I actually want to bring up. Oh man, I should bring it up. Hold on, give me a second. So the Hatsune Miku Magic cards. So with the Hatsune Miku Magic cards, I actually did not like the look of some of these cards. Like, the art style for some of them are god awful, and I'm just not a fan at all. Like, Shelter doesn't look that good. Harmonize actually, I think, is the only one that looks good. Harmonize looks good. Inspiring Vantage looks good. But like, Miku Lost But Singing, I don't like. Miku the Renowned, I don't like that art style. Shelter makes me want to like pull my eyes out of my face. Like, not a fan of that. Miku Spark though, I'll need to have a closer look at. Looks alright, but every single card I've seen as far as the Final Fantasy collab looks absolutely incredible. And then I've seen some of the cards' effects and how they work, and they seem to really bring the spirit of Final Fantasy into actually how Magic plays. But yeah, so we've got some stuff here like Lightning, Army of One being like Lightning signature move. So that's the art of the card, or the art that's going to be on the card, and it looks absolutely incredible. Together Forever, this was a huge moment in Final Fantasy X. Very much looking forward to seeing what that card does. And Emmett Selleck from FF14. So we've got 13 on the left here, 14 in the middle, and 10 on the right, which are some of the more sort of, I guess, recent, quote unquote, within the last 15 years of Final Fantasy for sure. yeah, the art style looks absolutely incredible, but then we've got, you know, stuff like, so these are going to be some of the commanders that we're going to be seeing, I think. Yeah, these are all FIC cards here at the bottom. So we've got Final Fantasy XIV's Y'shtola, Knights Blessed. We have Final Fantasy VII, Cloud Ex-Soldier, Final Fantasy VI, Terra, Herald of Hope, and Final Fantasy X, Tidus, Yuna's Guardian. And then I think Y'shtola, if I remember correctly, all 4 of these cards are going to have their own commander decks, and I think Y'shtola's one, I think personally at least, seems the most broken, which is a black, blue, white, and one of any. You get Vigilance. At the beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card. And important to keep in mind that anyone can lose 4 life, including yourself. And so in Commander, there's 4 people playing at once, so there you go. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, Y'shtola deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. On a 2/4 legendary creature cat warlock, which is crazy. So while her stats aren't the best, it's worth keeping in mind that she is all about drawing cards while dealing damage in 4s, which is really cool. So all things considered, like, I think in my opinion she's probably the most broken of the lot, and the others are just kind of fine. I think Terra and Tidus both have the lowest cost at only 3 mana each. So Terra is a black, a white, and a red, whereas Tidus, Yuna's Guardian, I can't remember exactly because the card is off the screen, but I think it's a red, a blue, and a green, but I could be wrong about that. And then there's some really nice looking full art cards, and I saw a giant cactua, and I thought, I like what they're doing with this card. So for those of you guys that don't know, cactuas are... Oh no, it's jumbo. It's not giant, it's a jumbo cactua. So cactuas are creatures that appear in Final Fantasy as rare creatures, and a normal cactua usually does around 777 damage, usually, to you whenever they do attack and hit you. But with a giant normally does around 10,000 damage. So the giant cactua has the effect that whenever this creature attacks, it gains plus 9,999 power plus 0 toughness. So it effectively does 10,000 damage per actual hit. And just seeing like these sort of small elements actually like sort of happen within the game, you know, elements that are taken from Final Fantasy and being put into Magic. Whereas, like, say for example, you got stuff like summons, for example. Summons in Final Fantasy are just single bursts of power that you can use only once in a single turn, and then they disappear unless you're playing something like Final Fantasy X, in which they stick around for a bit, you attack some, and then the summon disappears. Summons being a how would I call this? A saga really works because sagas obviously go away after they hit the final step of the saga, like that. So like it says here, it says at the top of the card, as the saga enters and after your draw step, add a lore counter, sacrifice after 3. So each summon is going to be able to stick around for about 3 turns, which is like sagas work exactly like summons in, I was going to say Pokemon, in Final Fantasy. So that actually works really, really well. And then you've got really powerful cards like Sin, Spira's Judgment, which is a black, green, blue, and 4 of any. So that's 7 mana total. For a 7/7 legendary creature Leviathan avatar with flying, and whenever Sin enters or attacks, exile a permanent card from your graveyard at random, then create a tapped token that's a copy of that card. If the exiled card is a land card, repeat this process. And the fun thing is that I can absolutely see this reanimation effect really getting broken, because if you've only got like a couple of cards somehow in your graveyard, and if you're able to cycle that, you know, you have a bunch of cards in your graveyard, you can cycle cards accordingly in your deck, then you can get real picky on like, not picky because it's picked at random, but like you could have specific cards you would like to reanimate through Sin's effect in that way, and I think that that's absolutely incredible. But also, if you know Sin from Final Fantasy X, it does seem quite prudent to talk about, because Sin does bring back enemies from the past that you have to fight. So during the Final Fantasy X story, so it's worth keeping that in mind. And then you've got, you know, other characters, and like Saz's Chocobo, for example, which requires a 1 green and has a landfall effect, for example, which is a fairly cheap way of getting landfall in Magic. So honestly, like, it's absolutely incredible to kind of see some of the elements of these cards being added in from Final Fantasy in the exact way in which they used in Final Fantasy, all those characters in those stories, and then be able to implement them in Magic in such a thoughtful and unique way. So as a Final Fantasy fan, I'm very excited for this, just because the implementation is incredibly well done, but also the fact that the set image for the commander decks are a little chocobo, and then you've got a Final Fantasy symbol for the rest of the cards, which like down here are FIN. So these are FIN cards, which are for standard, and then you've got, you know, these FIC cards for specifically for commander. And then we've actually got, you know, the actual play boosters, collectors, commander decks, and whatever have you. And it looks like the 4 commander decks are exactly those cards at the top we were looking at. So Stola, Tidus, Cloud, and Terra. So Final Fantasies 14, 10, 7, and 6, which are the most liked Final Fantasies, of like the 4 most liked, yeah. And then of course you've got the play boosters and stuff like that. And I was actually curious at looking into what the actual pricing of these are. So oh, there's a collector's edition of the actual commander decks. That's crazy. But another thing that's come up is the actual pricing for the commander decks, because these cards, so it doesn't actually say here, but apparently these cards are going to be selling at $70, 70 USD. Okay, it doesn't, maybe just, yeah, where have I delivered to? Let's say Canada. Okay, no, they don't ship outside the US. Sure, okay. Yeah, so apparently these sell for $70 USD, and apparently the play boosters and collector boosters are also incredibly expensive. So it definitely feels like they're really upping the price, despite the fact that while MSRP is back, it's unfortunate to see that while there is extremely cool design, extremely good art, a massive collection of over 200 cards in the actual set itself, and the fact that they're now boosting up the prices for everything in order to get more money out of people, it really kind of makes me wonder, like, why do this? It was already expensive enough that, you know, collectors boosters were basically never worth the financial value you were getting out of them. And I'm a person who actually buys the packs out of gameplay reasons rather than financial reasons, but it still doesn't change the fact that, you know, we are where we are because Wizards has decided to put an incredibly high MSRP on a lot of their products, because it's like, it's clear that they value their product highly. But just because they value their product highly doesn't mean that other people do. And it does make me wonder, what about the future of Universes Beyond? Are they actually going to be charging just as much, if not more money, for more of the, you know, Universes Beyond sets that are coming out in the future? Who knows? I'm just wondering where everything is going to fall ultimately in the end, and I feel like only time will tell, when it actually happens. But with all that being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you like to, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.